everyone.
Hello.
Hola.
Oh,
Here
the
with
free
my,
conversations.
right? The backstage conversations. I'm here with my BFF forever. I guess the second F is forever, right? My BF forever.
Yeah.
Alice. Uh, so today we're gonna have a little bit more of a candid conversation. It feels like, where her and I are coming live every Friday for the next, I guess, 8 Fridays after this. And literally, what she just said to me right before I hit go live. I won't say that. I won't say that last thing that you said.
Okay. Those are you get that when you like hang out with us in person. You get
Right.
that extra stuff.
Those are for the in-person retreats, right?
Yeah.
Right before the last thing that she said was, "What are we talking about today?" And I said, "Let me just hit go live, and we'll have this conversation." So, hello, Rosalie. If you are joining us live, we would love to know. Say hey to you and send you a little bit extra love, right? So we're talking about. I mean, it's honestly it's become one of my favorite F words.
Just fun.
Fun, and fab, and the uck one. That's my first one. But really, it's to forgive.
It makes everything better.
Yeah.
It
And
really does.
it really is, before everyone's like, oh, screw this. I was there, right? And it is not only the number one thing to tap into your ability to receive anything. So whatever, like, even for everyone that might be listening here on the replay or with us now live, what is it you want, right? What is it you desire? So this is something that we both help our clients get really clear with. And then when this arises, this desire, this thing that I want, or this person, or this experience, or whatever it might be, stuff starts to come up, right? We talked about this last week with the mirrors and the triggers. And once you realize them, once you see them, to forgive really does, it's like turning on the tap in order to release what it is that's holding you back from having the experience with a person or whatever it is that you're wanting, and to receive, right? It's that old release to receive, release to receive. And a lot of people, I think, believe that they have to completely heal or release, right, in order to receive. And we're in this kind of spin in the spiritual realm world, especially with like the empath kind of dynamic right now of, well, I feel so deep and I'm taken advantage of so much and I can't do this or I can't do that. And so I need to heal. I need to go back and I need to continuously heal and forgive. And so that keeps people forever in this perpetual spin of never really experiencing what they really desire to experience. And so, I don't know, I guess we just want to have a conversation about this because I know for sure it's 100% of clients that I work with. When we talk about forgiveness, there is such resistance. And so I put like a little extra longer of a blog below the title of this. So like, why the hell should I forgive, right? And I hear you. I definitely was there for a long time. But let's just break down the word forgive. To give as before. So when you give forgiveness, when you forgive, you are not saying that whatever the other person did, including yourself, or the circumstance or the situation, you're not saying that it's okay. You're not condoning it. But what you are saying is, I am willing to step forward with my life and to trust in the evolution that I am worthy to move forward and that I no longer have to pack all of the heaviness and the burdens that come with this situation, this person that has quite literally been weighing me down, being held in my tissues, been holding me back energetically, physically, mentally, emotionally. And so I'm going to give as myself, to the universe, before this other person or this circumstance or this situation ever had. And that's really ever happened. And that's really what to forgive is, right? And so I think it helps to just like really draw the line there. In that the way that I used to think about forgiveness was, again, why should I forgive? Like what they did was wrong. or the things that I've done in my past that I judge as really wrong, right? Probably really wrong. And that I held on to for years and years and years, punishing myself, self-sabotaging myself because I believed it was so wrong. So to forgive is to be willing to receive. So if you're someone that wants to experience more in life, and by that more in life, I don't know, maybe it's a really conscious, beautiful, intimate love relationship. Or maybe it's flowing, like it's building another business and flowing massive amounts of wealth through it. Maybe it's a really shiny orange Corvette. Maybe it's toning your body up or releasing the excess fat and just a grudge that's being held literally in the tissues. Like whatever the desire might be, right? If you're not experiencing it and you've done all of the things in the physical world, so you have gone on the diets or you've gone on the dating apps or you've been set up or you've tried all of the what is it, like the SEOs and stuff like that, and you're like, but I don't understand, it's working for other people but it's not working for me. Here's the kicker, here's the linchpin. There's some forgiveness, there's somewhere to give of yourself as before what is holding you back. And again, it's the one thing that as I work with clients, they think that they can bypass. I know I did for a really long time. I can find gratitude, right? There's some bypassing in this. I can find gratitude for my ex because without them, I wouldn't have my children, right? So we can all like kind of spiritually bypass this, where I can even trust that everything's happening the way that it's meant to happen. And so for a lot of people that are awakening, like I so believe that everything is always happening for my greatest good and my highest growth. That's our life, Allison. But in that, the body, the ego, right, the body, mind, the nervous system is going, wait, hang on. Like I'm the one carrying all this for you. Like you put me, me as in my essence, my spirit, my soul. You put me in this physical body, and my physical body is just doing what it does, right? It's processing. It's letting all of the hormones like kind of drop in and move throughout my body, and I keep experiencing the same thing. I keep trying to get you to see there's something else that needs to be forgiven in order to truly receive, right? There's only so much space in this. And so when we talk about entropy, I think of it as like a revolving door. Something is always coming and something is always leaving. And so if you really want to bring in what is next for you, bring in your desires, you have to let some of the other stuff go.
To make room.
To make room, yeah, law of vacuum. Mm-hmm. I heard this quote the other day and I thought, wow, that's so true. And it read something like, your new life is going to cost you your old life. Something along those lines, right? And it's so true. How many of us are holding on to what doesn't work, but it's known, right? And this is the brain's way of being a pattern recognizer and saying, but I understand this. So if I just do this thing, which, like I'm going to use nutrition, for example, like losing weight might be your desire right now. So if I do this thing where I, count all my calories, I count all my water intake, I count all my macronutrients, then I lose weight. Well, there's a law of attraction. There's some timing in there where it will work until you actually catch up to yourself. Everything moving in this vortex. So this is why, what is that term? I've hit
a plateau.
A plateau. Doesn't actually exist. You've just come back around in the vortex. There is no such thing as a plateau. And now all of a sudden your higher self knows what you're trying to trick yourself with. And then you create more of these neural synapses that say, I'm the person that tricks myself. I'm the person that has to like fool myself. And so then you try another fad diet, right? Same thing with like, I get into another relationship with a narcissist, or I get into another relationship with someone who just continuously doesn't value me, whatever the thing might be. Mm-hmm. So to talk about the power of forgiveness is like, it's just so profound. And go ahead. I'm gonna stop talking.
Oh, I was just gonna say, and the importance of it on a regular basis. Absolutely. Because you're gonna continue hitting those peaks. Well, like let's say we don't call it a plateau. It's like you've peaked and then you stop. And then wait, I want more, or how come I'm going back down, versus there's the opportunity to forgive in whatever the situation is. And like we've talked about before, that things will come up when you're ready to move past them. And so there's always a new layer that can, like a new layer of growth or a new layer of healing to do. And not that, you were talking earlier about that perpetual healing cycle. It's not that. That's not what we're talking about. Like where you don't have to constantly be healing, but this is a foundational tool to continue moving forward, is to continue looking. And it can take seconds, it could take minutes, it could take hours, it could take days, it could take years. You get to decide how long it takes, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I got truth points when you said that, because that's true. It's a practice. So once you have a practice of forgiveness and you understand its power, then something can happen and you can forgive in the moment before you even move forward.
Yeah.
So that you're then not carrying it. I mean, it's the equivalent of literally, like I think of it like, wearing a backpack. And something happens and you throw the ish in the backpack, right? You throw it behind you. You just keep going on. You keep hustling, keep grudging on, keep being I'm going to use the empath word again, like just doing my thing because this is what I do. I carry the weight of the world for everyone else. This is who I am. And it's a little bit of a call out for obviously I'm speaking to those empaths who really are ready to like just drop the backpack and no longer be willing to carry this weight, whether it's your own or someone else's, right? Because it is your divine birthright, absolutely. And the power in that, the power in being able to recognize something happening in the moment and releasing it versus carrying it forever.
Mm-hmm.
And this really is part of the brain's like ability to hold on to something and then create more pathways that say, this is who I am. I'm the person that holds on to this. And then before you know it, a day, like you said, a week, a year, a decade later, and holy shit, like it's so big, it's so heavy that you've been holding on to. But all you got to do is slide the straps off and let it go. Forgive.
Well, and not to mention all the other things that are going to come along through life that are going to end up in that backpack with, like, if you don't get rid of that one thing or whatever the thing is that's gotten heavier, like you're going to keep adding more and more and more and more. And then there's less room. I'm looking at my glass of water, so I don't know if you can see the ice in it, but I'm sure you've seen the video where, like you have all the rocks in a glass, and then you can see how much water you can pour in, or sand or whatever. And the more these other things are taking up space, the less that you have room to fill it with the things that matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that again is like the law of vacuum, a visual to the law of vacuum. So feeling like trying to bring this into, like a real world analogy or somehow that like this makes sense. Because I think for both you and I who are, highly spiritual and we dabble in that, we're also very rooted in science, right? Quantum physics. So for anyone that might be watching this and like kind of trying to grasp at what we're really saying here. And going back to the analogy of like the backpack, right? Where you put something back there. So something happens, I don't know, a comment's made, you're triggered, whatever it might be. Or really big, like if you've been really wrong, right? Like an actual trauma, we'll call it. And you throw it in the backpack and you're hanging on to it, right? And you're angry and you're thinking, why would I ever forgive them? Why would I ever even forgive myself? Like I put myself in this situation, whatever it might be. Well, the brain does something then. And it says, this is who I am. I'm the person that picks all of this stuff up and I align with it. And I throw it back in this backpack again in the analogy, but quite literally in your tissues, in your connective tissue. And I hold on to it. And then the body will present physical pain. You'll have knee pain. You'll have hip pain. You'll get diagnosed with diseases. You'll, what is that? Get headaches, get migraines.
What?
Talking about? Yeah. So everything that presents physically in the body, right, is because it's something that's happening on the inside. Nothing ever happens from the outside in. Like literally, I had this talk with my girls on the way to school today because there's like they're in school now for 3 weeks and they've both got like they might be getting a little cold, and so they're like, how does someone give you a cold, right? So it was my opportunity to be like, well, talk about the viruses, talk about the unseen world, talk about like we could see these things at a microscopic level, but really, we have to at some level be willing to allow that virus in order to experience the symptoms of a cold or a virus or whatever it might be. This scientifically, like we don't even need to dive down into like the way that we, some people experience certain diseases they're predisposed to and some people don't. So I don't know. I feel like in my attempt to try and bring this into a real world example, I got even more esoterical. But I don't know. That's me.
The bottom line is we have a lot more power scientifically and spiritually than we realize and acknowledge. And I
Oh
think
my,
that's the scary part, maybe. You were talking about like people who don't want to do the forgiveness work. I've been there plenty of times. Because you think it's going to be so painful and uncomfortable. And for me, I always think like it's gonna be exhausting. I don't wanna like be tired for the rest of the day from doing this like deep emotional work. But the more and more I've done it over the years, the easier and faster it happens. And like you said, you can literally forgive in the moment. I won't go into like the things that happened earlier this week, but you and I have talked about just the random situations that have come up, and you've asked me like, what mirror is this? And then just literally like processing it and moving on. Like, okay, no big deal. Like this would have been a major trigger for me in the past. It would have bothered me for days, if not longer. I would have really been worried about it. And I was able to see the situation from a completely different perspective and just be like, okay, next. And it wasn't bypassing them. It was, I acknowledged them and moved through them. So it doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to be exhausting to do it.
Yeah. Oh, I did notice that about you also. I don't know if I told you that, but even in this last week, the conversation about the mirrors that came up for you and me asking and us talking it through happened so much quicker, right?
Mm-hmm.
The week before. And so this is the muscle, this is the practice of it, where when you release it, you drop the backpack. So when something comes up, this is why it happens so much more quicker, because it's not attaching to everything else. And then the body as in the nervous system, the human mind, needing to prove it to itself. Like, see, I knew this about myself. It's how the body knows that it's sane. Right? This is like, again, like some science, and I get pretty deep into this in the series that I teach in Holy Shift, which might be like my wink and nod and shout out to, I am getting ready to run this next series. So if you're listening to this and you're like kind of feeling, I don't know, compelled, you can send me a direct message and we can have a conversation, or a private message. We can have a conversation about this in the next time that I'm going to roll this program out in the next probably 4 weeks. But what happens, like just what you said, what happens is when you put it down, then you're not carrying the weight so that you can see it, release it instantly in the moment.
You know what I just thought of just now too, is that if you're carrying it, it's almost like it's a giant magnet. Mm-hmm. So if it's in the backpack and you're carrying the backpack and you've got this giant magnet in the backpack, everything that's associated or could potentially be related to that giant magnet, it's going to come hit you harder and harder and harder, versus like, let's say you walk through a very similar situation and you don't have the magnet in you. You can just kind of be like, bum, 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 through all the things. But if you've got the magnet, you can't go like this because the magnetic force is strong.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of it.
And what you're really describing right now is the perception mirror, right? Mm-hmm. So as long as we're in a human body, we have our own perception. Like everything is our own person. Nothing is actually happening in the way, like there is no truth. There is no reality. There's only your perception, right? So your perception is very different from mine, very different from whomever might be watching or listening. And so your perception is creating your reality. Mm-hmm. So when you have all of this ish that you're carrying around, you are seeing the world, you are perceiving the world from that same perspective.
Yeah.
I was watching something actually the other day, and I'm trying to remember his name, but I can't remember who leads this. But he was talking about people that believe in luck and people that don't believe in luck. And so he did this really cool, like this scenario where one guy, like totally, he said he has horrible luck. He doesn't believe in good luck because he has no luck. And then another lady who believes in luck. And it was fascinating to see these experiments that they did. So they had snuck a lottery, like a fake scratcher, into his mail. And he didn't even bother to scratch the ticket off because he just always assumed he wouldn't win. He walked literally over money because there's a little bit of the RAS, the reticular activating system in this, right? Where like he just doesn't look for it. But this is exactly what you're talking about. When you are carrying this magnet around, you are only looking at the world through the view of having to carry all of this ish around, right? Mm-hmm. That really is what I'm talking about, like speaking into those empaths who are just like, man, I've served my time. I'm willing to no longer be at the whim of my super deep, incredible emotions. So that I stop attracting these people who want to suck it from me. Not a good.
Ought to go there.
I had to. Sorry. It's been 20 minutes. I haven't had a slip yet.
Yeah, it's. Oh Lord, I can't compose myself. Come on now.
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not really sorry. I want to put this comment up because Rosalie, I've never heard this term before. Eudaimonia. Have you heard of that before? It's almost like pneumonia. Eudaimonia. Human flourishing organically. Like
That's a really pretty word.
Right? Just the way that we're meant to be. Absolutely. Our birthright is to be flourishing. Our birthright is to live in bliss and to live in flow and to just naturally allow.
And also, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, when you talk about that, because I think there's the beauty in, like you said, the entropy, the decay, the transformation, because our birthright is to flow and flourish and all of that. And yet, look at anything that grows, there's a process to it. There's a shedding to it. It's been so windy here, the last week, that there's debris everywhere from the pine trees that are, even though pine trees are, what is it? The annual, they're green all year long. I don't know. I can't think of the word, but even them, they still shed and in order to continue flourishing.
Yeah. And in that, like they have a whole process with that. In fact, now that you say that, I saw something yesterday where they had treated these trees so that they didn't go through the process of like the wintering, right? And they actually only lasted, because they're meant to, they only lasted 1 year, because they missed part of their seasons. And so like this is divine timing, really what you're talking about also, where a flower, it blooms organically. It doesn't like rush to bloom. It just naturally blooms. This is all in divine. We all are cyclical. We all move through divine timing. And as it blooms, then what happens? It starts to, the petals start to fall off. They move into the ground. That becomes soil. It's for the insects, right? And it's the cycle of life. And we're meant to go through these same cycles as well. So for people who feel like I'm always on, I'm always going, I'm always doing, again, this comes back to there's something that you, like a belief system even, that you've been holding on to back into this metaphorical background, you've been, carrying. And I think so many people also just don't realize how good you can feel.
Yeah, I am a walking evidence of that. I had no.
There are aliens talking. If you can hear that in the recording, every once in a while we have like our beings from other planets that come in and talk with us.
I really had, like, if I see people who I haven't seen in a couple of years. I just touched base with somebody yesterday that I hadn't seen in probably like 9 months maybe, and I could still have one area of my life that I have a lot of growth opportunities for, and yet I am so happy, and you can feel I feel so good in everything else that I didn't even realize was possible. It just keeps getting, like we've talked about, it can just keep getting better and better and better. And it doesn't mean that there aren't going to be those messy moments. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be some decay mixed in, but you really can feel so good.
Yeah, it's the overall vibration. Yeah, I think like that came up for me, and I was telling you also, if I didn't know any better, because I went into the forgiveness practice. So I also, this is part of what I teach, is there's a forgiveness practice within this series that I teach.
And Holy Shift, just for everybody who's clear.
Of what?
Of Holy Shift, in the process that you teach within Holy Shift.
Yeah, I should say that right. For the algorithm, is that what you're saying it for? Holy Shift, for Holy Shift, for Holy Shift.
You need to make sure you enunciate properly, or you're going to get kicked out of all of the social media.
I know. I realize I accidentally said that S word earlier too. I get warnings from Facebook all the time. I'm going to get shut down, but I'll figure it out if that happens. But I told you, right? Because I knew I was going into this forgiveness practice. I was going in to lead the forgiveness practice. And as a teacher, there's no way you can actually go through this process and teach it and guide it without actually going through it yourself.
Right.
And I knew the power of it. And I all of a sudden, about 24 hours before I was about to guide this session, I started to feel like I had the flu. I felt like I could just like literally lay down on the ground right now and fall asleep. I'm sweaty. I feel sick to my stomach. I kind of have an itchy throat. And this is what we we're talking about before, where everything will present physically. And so because I knew I was going into this forgiveness practice, the body was calling forward all of the stuff that was ready to be released. And so for anyone walking around with chronic sore throats or with chronic belly aches or with chronic, I don't know, shoulder pain, or think they're clumsy, they're just the one that falls all the time, right? Or you get over one health crisis only to get diagnosed with another one. This is your body's way of just saying, I'm ready to drop this. I'm ready to literally drop the weight, metaphorically and quite literally.
I don't know if I shared this with you about did I talk about the food stuff this week, the gluten?
I think a little bit, but go ahead.
It happened yesterday too. So I went to 2 events this week that were networking events and women's business events. And for anybody who doesn't know, I have had reactions to gluten for, I don't know, at least 5 years. It's been 7 years, I think, since I eliminated it. And I did this little 2-week experiment. And the first time, so I eliminated it for 2 weeks, and then I accidentally ate a crouton, and I ended up with a migraine for 3 days straight. The gluten will either give me really bad digestive issues, or I will get a migraine within a half an hour. Usually is what happens. So I went to the whole zoo thing, the whole salad debacle, where I wasn't triggered. Yay! We'll save that story for another time. But there wasn't anything for me to eat there, and I was so hungry. And so what I did was I ended up, there was a wrap, and there were chicken strips within the wrap. And so I pulled the chicken strips out of the wrap. Now, mind you, it's been wrapped in a tortilla that has gluten, flour, whatever. This is apparently really important because we're getting an extra noise. I want to tell you the story. But I ate that chicken, and I didn't have any reaction from that chicken. Yesterday, the event that I went to, there was not anything that nothing was separated. I either had dairy, a cream sauce that probably had some sort of flour in it, or it had ranch dressing, and then there was the rice pilaf, so it had little pieces of pasta in there. Again, all stuff I can't eat. And I just was I'm gonna do this. I took my digestive enzymes beforehand, which I've been doing for a long time, and I would still have reactions. But I took that and I ate the meat. I just kind of scraped it off with the fork, and I had no reaction. But I really believe that as I continue to heal and do more and more work, I have less and less of a reaction. I'm not going to go eat a piece of bread, but I also was having this conversation with someone last night that I think I'm also getting little microdoses of the gluten, and it hasn't introduced it back into my life. That paired with the fact that I'm not in constant inflammation, stress, anxiety, that those 2 things are really making it easier to just move forward in life. So it's just an example of the fact that even if you've lived with something chronically, I've had chronic digestive issues for my whole life, as long as I can remember, and migraines since I was 14. So I don't know, creeping up on 30 years. And it's just continuing to heal as I continue to do the work. And I've done the work for years, right? But it's at a new level. And there's just a new level, and we can continue to grow.
Well, and really what you're speaking to, I think, Allison, is the belief system, right? So what we believe about the food, what we believe about ourselves. So all of the trillions of the cells in our body, when we have a deep belief system, and it can be something as simple as, if I eat this crouton, or if I eat this and I don't truly remove all the gluten, I'm going to have a response to it. And so it's really beautiful to watch you as, someone who knows you from before, that like you would just go hungry. You wouldn't even attempt to remove any of
No, I was
around.
afraid. I was terrified.
Yeah. And so now to be able to have some of that, but it's not the physical, it's not the tangible like gluten, it's the belief system around that, right? It's what's been indoctrinated, and from lifetimes also, not just this lifetime, but the stuff that's happened that's created the brain to create this barrier, right? And I realize for a lot of people, I can feel this almost of like completely wanting to disagree, and that's okay, right? Everyone's opinion here is valid and welcome. I'm speaking directly to the people who are ready to completely drop even the belief system, what we know scientifically. By the time it's proven scientifically, it is so far mother loving outdated. It just is. So by the time science can prove something, the only thing we know for sure that's proven is numbers, is math. This is why we're quantum numerologists, right? Not math, but numbers. Let me be clear, not math, but numbers. So science is just theory. It's just a bunch of theories that make a lot of sense until they get either disproven or proven. And by the time it's proven, it's so far outdated. And that's really what we're talking about here too, is like what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the food, what you believe about how your body is going to react. And to believe is to gift it your awareness of love. So the more that you, like you said, I feel better than I ever realized I could possibly feel. That's loving on yourself. It's believing in yourself even more. And as you do that, we start to rid all of these other things that are happening in our life.
Mm-hmm. I also, for the people who are there saying they don't believe, I also think it's important to note that both of us in the work that we do with our clients there's overarching, way that we operate, but it's also very personalized and customized to what each person needs. It's very intuitive. So, what works for me may not work for you versus someone else. Like, I just felt like that was probably good for people to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And understanding that we really like to say like this is a no judgment zone or free of judgment is like so an understatement, right? Because we both can meet our clients exactly where they're at. We're both seers. We can see that. And to know the pathway, right? To know exactly the direction for them to move forward. And we do this through, again, quantum numerology and their literal birth contracts, above and beyond all of the physical stuff that's going on. So I think that's specifically what I'm speaking to also, is a lot of clients that I work with, they've been chasing the physical world. They've been chasing the thing on the outside of them through other people, through more toys, the stuff, in the physical world. And they're really ready to go inward and dive inward. And I know who I work is very different from who you do. So maybe I'll do that. I'm just going to kind of wrap this up with saying, I am getting ready to teach another round of Holy Shift. So if this is something you've been curious about, send me a private message. We can have a conversation. It's really for people who are ready to truly take responsibility for themselves. I'm ready to, like, these are my ideal clients, right? My soul assignments. I'm ready to release what I believe has been programmed and conditioned into me. And I'm ready to truly live out my spiritual purpose. And when I do that, I know the physical world will, so to speak, fall in line. So that's the invite. Send me a private message. If you're enjoying these conversations, if you'd like to have a private conversation about working with me or in one of my groups. And then I'm going to leave it there. And Allison, go ahead and do your shout out to your peeps.
Well, as you were saying that, I was just thinking, like, it's about empowerment. That was yesterday. That was the topic of the conference that I went to, was empower. But it's just about being empowered. I'm more on the practical side, but it's not just practical. Yeah. So if you want a little extra simplification in your life, from the practical side, but also with the spiritual side, then that's what we do. That's what I do.
Okay, I giggle. All right. Well, we're gonna let people feel into that.
You want me to tell them what I do for like a basic, simple thingy mabobber?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's practical success and happiness solutions. So, like we're talking about numerology, being quantum numerologists. I in my birth card, I'm in the physical world. So I'm in the diamonds, which is very tangible, physical. And then I have a ruling number 4, which is about foundation, structure. So while my brain goes into all of the lovely, spiritual, all of that stuff as well, and I love to live in the land of possibility and potential. I also really love that, like, what practical steps can we take? And I also really like to look at things as like an experiment, like a science experiment, because it kind of takes away some of the fear. But just tying it all together and looking at it from a holistic standpoint, how can you actually create holistic happiness to be more successful? That's more of what I do for change makers, people who consider themselves a change maker.
Yeah, for sure. High achievers. Yes. Alrighty. Well, that's our Friday. We'll be back next Friday, probably around the same time. But invites, send us private messages. All right. Happy weekend, everyone. We're moving. So energetically, if you're coming to this live or on the replay, we're moving into the hearts suit next tomorrow within 24 hours. So that's more of the heart love, right? That's more of the, am I truly going to go within and allow myself to be the love, to be the relationship that I'm seeking outside into the physical world? All right. Till then, bye, everyone.